Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda. It is Tuesday. I am on my quest to catch up on some of my book tags. So today I am doing the spoiler book tag, and I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat, and this was created by, Scott by Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, and Jess at Book Girl TV, who may have also tagged me, I'm sorry, revived it. So this is all about spoilers. And I like these tags where I don't have to go searching for books because it's hard to get to my books that are in piles. But anyway, let's get to it. First prompt, what do you consider a spoiler? It depends book to book. So if it's a book where you know the plot is very plotty, like a mystery novel or a thriller or something like that, anything that involves the plot, any that's going to happen, I would say is a spoiler. Also, telling me there's going to be a twist in the book is a spoiler. That is a spoiler because as soon as you tell me there's going to be a twist, then I'm looking for the twist. So I guess that it kind of goes, anything that reveals something about the plot that would affect your reading. Now, there's always a question about old books, and I've gotten to be a little better about this. Angelia at Read and Reread has talked many times about people spoiling Jane Eyre, and I am someone who read Jane Eyre without knowing the story, so yes, you can spoil that book. But I've also brought this up. What about Little Women? And I've always said you can't spoil Little Women because it was an episode of Friends. There was an episode of Friends about it, right? And once you've hit that, it's not a spoiler. But I've gotten better about that. Now, instead of saying what that thing is, I just say it's the thing that made Joey put the book in the freezer. There you go. Question 2. This kind of goes with the same thing. Does the genre you're reading impact what you consider to be a spoiler? Definitely. If I'm reading something literary, I hate that term, literary fiction, but something that's more just a novel that's not really genre, and there's something in the plot that someone says that's not really going to affect, depending on what it is and what the story is, it may not affect my reading experience. If you tell me something in a mystery or a thriller that's going to happen, then yes, that is going to affect. So I do think that spoilers are a bigger deal in certain genres. Mystery, romance, for example, one of the hallmarks of romance, and if you want to argue with me, this is a whole other video, okay? We're not going to get to it here, but it's true. One of the hallmarks of a romance is that it ends a certain way. So I find those a little harder to spoil, but a mystery, a thriller, sometimes horror, those are much easier to spoil. Okay. Question 3. All the best bits are in the trailer. Sometimes a synopsis can be too detailed. Do you research books prior to reading them, or do you prefer to know nothing about the book? It's really hard for me in the booktube world and the sort of online book world and the heavy reader world to go into a book not knowing anything. It just is. So I always seem to know a little something about it. I generally, and I will read. This is not a good example. I'm holding this up from a previous book, but I'm going to read this book anyway. I know that it's a follow-up to another book. If I hadn't picked this book up, like if I hadn't picked up Red Rabbit, which was the first book, I would probably read the synopsis and be good with that. I think people who are writing jacket copy are getting better about not spoiling things. Sometimes they do the setup wrong, and that's different, but that's not a spoiler. But I do think they're getting better at avoiding it. I'm not researching any book really heavily that I'm going into. There are people who go and read a bunch of reviews. I don't read reviews before I read the book. Although I will look at star ratings, just like, especially if you, and I really appreciate this, in reviews where you start it with a star rating. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about reading this book. Oh, it's 4.5 stars. I'm going to stop reading. Thank you for your opinion. I'll come back and read it at some point. But right now I'm stopping because I want to go read this book. See what I mean? So I try not to research the books too much. Question 4. Sometimes the introduction or translator's notes can spoil the ending, especially for classics. Has this ever happened to you? Oh, freaking yes. Oh, freaking yes. I've gotten to the point now where I do not read front or back matter of classics until after I've read the book. I recently did a reread of Agnes Grey. And so it was a reread for me. So I was okay reading the front matter of it. And I did want to read the front matter of it. So this was just sort of a general irritation. It didn't really spoil anything for me because I'd already read the books in question. But not only did the introduction spoil Agnes Grey, it spoiled The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. It spoiled 2 books in one. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not cool. So yeah, when it comes to classics, before I read the book, I do not read the introduction or the conclusion. And honestly, for a lot of classics, I at least know a little bit something going into it. Right now I'm reading Madame Bovary, and I knew the bare minimum of Madame Bovary going into it. And I stayed at that. I didn't read the jacket copy or anything. I didn't read the introduction. I wanted to go in. I already knew enough, probably more than if this were a contemporary novel. I probably knew more than I would have wanted to going into it, but I do try to, with classics, be careful because of those dang introductions. Name a time somebody spoiled a novel for you. David freaking Suchet. So I was watching David Suchet, who played Poirot in the Poirot series. Very well known, loved series. He does a great job with Poirot, right? He did this documentary. It's like following in the footsteps of Agatha Christie. And this was when I was just I was still pretty early on in my Agatha Christie journey. So I was before this book. I will tell you, I had not gotten to this book yet. He's talking about something, and then he blatantly just tells you the solution to the murder of Roger Ackroyd, which that one in particular is one you don't want to know, because that one, the ending was so, and I'm trying not to be sure. Well, it's Agatha Christie, so you know that the endings are always something, but that one you really don't want to have spoiled. And he freaking spoiled it right there. It made me so mad. So when I finally did get to it, I already knew what the solution was. And I really felt like I was robbed, because that one has like a really solution. And I didn't have that reaction because of David freaking Suchet. Okay. 6. Have you ever spoiled a novel for somebody else? I hope not, but I have spoiled a TV show intentionally for someone else. This was several years ago when the first of the newest Star Wars trilogy came out. So, the one, I can't remember what the first one was. The one where you have Rey, okay? And at the same time, there was a show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. by Marvel on, which I had not watched when it was still on, but I was catching up on binge watching it. So I was still in the first season. And I was visiting my in-laws, and my husband's cousin, we had gone to see the Star Wars movie, so I knew what was happening. And his cousin's wife was there. She had not gone to see the movie with us. And I had mentioned I'm binge watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And she's like, oh, that's so good. I'm like, okay, great. Don't tell me what's happening. She's like, yeah, but I'm like, no, really, just don't tell me what's happening, right? And she's like, but let me just tell you this. And then she blatantly spoiled the whole season. So I looked at her, and I'm not going to do it. I'm nice. And I just said, beep, 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 beep. Looked her right in the face and spoiled the Star Wars movie for it, because I'm sorry. I sat there and I told her to shut up, and she wouldn't. So turnabout is fair play, and I do not regret it. I do not regret it at all. And I don't know if I've actually seen her since then. To tell you the truth, I don't think I've seen her since then. But yeah, I haven't seen her in a while. But I don't think she'll ever spoil anything for me again. If spoilers ruin novels, are there some authors or genres you can't reread? No. I think the big one for me, one of my biggest read genres, are mysteries. And so rereading, obviously, if you're rereading a mystery, you usually know who did it, right? If I'm rereading a mystery, I'm reading it for a different reason. And so it's not for who did it. It might be like, let's see if I can find the clues. What did I miss the first time? It's a different experience. So it doesn't ruin rereading for me. Yeah. That the spoiler to me only really applies the first time I've read the book. And when you reread, it's a different experience. So at that point, the spoilers are moot because you already know what happens, right? Okay. When reviewing, are you spoiler free? Does this limit your ability to discuss? I'm not always spoiler free, but I do label when I am doing a spoiler. I think that's okay, because sometimes you need to you need to be able to spoil the book, or maybe another book, to discuss a book thoroughly. Case in point, I recently did a review of Here on Earth by Alice Hoffman, which is a retelling of Wuthering Heights. And in that, I did my little remarks, non-spoiler remarks, and then I said, look, I can't talk about this book. I can not spoil this book, but I can't talk about this book without spoiling Wuthering Heights. So I said, here's where spoilers start, and you can tune out now if you want to. And I think that's a very appropriate way of doing it. So that's the way I do it. That's the way I feel. And I really appreciate that when other people do it. I know Alex at Frank Friction, she will like totally change her clothes and room when she's a spoiler. And I think that's a great way of doing it. And lots of times she'll be reviewing a book that I have no interest in reading. So I just want to see the spoilers because I hear what she thinks about them. So especially if she didn't like the book, because she will tell you why she didn't like a book. So yeah, I think it's perfectly appropriate, as long as you say there's spoilers, to spoil in a book review. Just let people know that's happening so they have the opportunity to exit out if they want to. Okay, shout out. Tell us about 5 channels you enjoy and tag them. So these are not tags to do the videos, because I think everybody's already done this tag. I'm so late on it. But if you haven't done it, you want to go ahead. I'm just going to shout out 5 channels that I enjoy. I have my little jar, which is not really updated. So there's probably some channels I enjoy that aren't in here. I'm just going to shout out these channels. Go check them out. This is not I'm sure that some of people have already done this. I will put the stick back if I've already mentioned them in this video, but otherwise just go check out these channels. They're cool. Heidi at My Reading Life. I'm going to do, oh, it does say 5, doesn't it? Okay. Leandra, the TBR0. Lindsay at Lindsay Reads. The Mild Rumpus. Who, I miss his videos. I wish he would, I know life is busy. I do know life is busy, but I miss his videos. And I miss Ace. And Suey at Suey's Book Banner. So again, I'm not tagging, I'm just shouting out, so go check them out, as well as the other people that I've mentioned in this video. And of course, if you want to do this and you are as behind the game as I am, go right ahead. I'd love to see your video. Anyway, like, subscribe, join my Discord. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.